Experiencing the death of loved ones can leave you feeling like an empty vessel, just wandering through life without purpose or direction. What if I told you that there is a powerful three-letter word that could be crucial and a guiding key that can help you through grief and help you nurture your personal growth after loss? How might this possibility change the way you take your next step forward? Experiencing the death of loved ones can leave you feeling like an empty vessel, just wandering through life without purpose or direction. It may seem as though a part of you, or even your entire self, has vanished, making you unsure of who is staring back at you when you look in the mirror. If any of this resonates with you, then you're in the right place. This episode is for you, my friend, because grief can have this overwhelming effect, an earth shattering experience, especially following the loss of loved ones. But I want you to go ahead and consider this. What if, even after deep loss, you have the potential to grow in ways you could have never imagined? Not to negate your pain or your loss or your very own experience, but more so to help you open you up to hope and possibilities that can create deep and meaningful changes in your life. What if I told you that there is a powerful three-letter word that could be crucial and a guiding key that can help you through grief and help you nurture your personal growth after loss? How might this possibility change the way you take your next step forward? Hello, my friend, and welcome to the very first episode of the Growth After Loss podcast. I'm Dr. Marquez. I am a personal growth educator after a loss. And with this podcast, my mission is to help you navigate changes and growth after the loss of your loved ones. Now, in this episode, I'd like to open a little bit about my own personal journey of growth and grief after the loss of my own loved ones. I will also share a pivotal experience that changed the trajectory of my own journey, including saving my life. Today, I'm so excited because we're also going to delve into what grief really means based on the insights of the American Psychological Association. I'm also going to go ahead and introduce a practical exercise that you can implement to help you navigate your grief and nurture your personal growth after the loss of your loved ones. Now, I know that the journey of grief can be incredibly complex and challenging. And my hope and mission is that through my work and through this podcast, you're able to gain knowledge and practical tools grounded in research to help support yourself through navigating grief and nurturing your personal growth after loss. You still deserve to live a life that's full of joy and purpose and meaning, even if it's one gentle step at a time. On that note, let's begin. So let's start off with the catalyst of all of this. Why are we here? We are here because of this thing we call grief. The grief that is caused by the experience of the death of our loved ones. The American Psychological Association, known as APA, defines grief as the anguish experienced after significant loss, usually the death of a beloved person. Grief is often distinguished from bereavement, which is the condition of having lost a loved one due to death, and the mourning, which is the process of expressing that grief. following the death of a loved one. However, APA notes that not all bereavement results in a strong sense of a grief response, and not all grief is given public expression. Now, grief can include psychological distress, separation anxiety, it can include confusion and yearning, even obsessive dwelling on the past, and apprehension for the future. So, intense grief can become life threatening. It can become life threatening to disruption of our immune system, self neglect, and even suicidal ideation. Now, according to the American Psychological Association, grief may also take the form of regret for something lost. It can take the shape of remorse for something done or sorrow for a mishap to oneself. So, when we are talking about grief in this particular show and episode, we are specifically referring to the pain and the sorrow that we feel due to the loss of loved ones. Now, I want to take a moment to share a little bit about my own personal story of grief and also growth after experiencing the devastation of my own losses. So, through this experience of mine, I have learned something incredibly powerful that I hope can have a significant impact in your own life as much as it did in mine. Now, this simple decision and action, while sometimes difficult to do because it's not easy, it can also become a guiding light on your own path, as I know it did for me. This can help you reclaim parts of yourself that you may thought that were lost forever. Back in 2018, I faced the most devastating year of my life. In June of that year, I stood by my father's bedside while I watched him take his last breath after a long battle with pancreatic and liver cancer. 4 months after his passing, my husband experienced a horrific and sudden accident that eventually ended his life. It was incredibly shocking and earth shattering, to say the least, when we experience the death of a loved one. But when we experience multiple losses, it just compounds on that grief. And I'm sure you can relate to this because it's hard to comprehend how one moment we can have our loved one here by our side and the next they're gone. And it's so debilitating because you have no say in the matter. Nothing that you can do will change the outcome. Navigating life after these losses for me was incredibly excruciating. And I did feel like an empty vessel, just struggling to walk through a thick fog on a path that had no clear direction whatsoever. Even though I, at that point in time, had my little one, I had a little baby, it was really hard for me to see any light or hope or any possibility because my grief was so incredibly heavy and intense. Now, this darkness took me to a place without a sense of direction. And it wasn't until I reached one very powerful turning point. This specific action truly changed the course of my journey through grief and growth in my own life after loss. This very powerful action has also been able to help so many others who are in a similar situation. For me, it started with the simple yet crucial realization. And I needed to allow myself to feel more than just pain and sorrow. I felt stuck in a cycle of grief that seemed to have no end. It was exhausting being in a deep state of grief all the time. And it took me to a place that where I almost ended my own life. That is a very dark place to be. And it's so important to talk about this because the weight and the heaviness of grief is so deep that it can lead us to those dark places. However, that very dark moment did also lead me to this very thing that I want to share with you today. And I hope that through my work and through this podcast, you are able to find inspiration and take positive actions in your life so you can embrace the light and hope that I have found in mine and that so many others have found in theirs. And let me tell you why. Because as much as your grief and your pain and your loss matters, so do you, my friend. And you deserve a life that is still worth living with joy and meaning and purpose. So, this one thing I want to share with you today because it has created such a powerful change in my own life. And I know it can do the same for you in yours. It is a small but powerful three-letter word. And can you guess what that is? It is the word yes. After experiencing loss, you and I both know that it can be incredibly challenging to open ourselves up to things that may be able to help us, but we're not sure that they really will. However, saying yes to hope, to new possibilities, to the people who can genuinely help us and want to support us through this journey of loss can be a crucial step in processing your grief, your growth, and your transformation to living a meaningful life after a loss. Now, for me, allowing myself to saying yes to receiving support after loss and taking action, even though I thought nothing could change my pain and sorrow, it actually made a huge difference in my own life. Let me tell you why. Because finally accepted and engaged in support, and it helped me find new ways to navigate my grief, that very deep grief that I had. And it helped me to learn and relive a world that made no sense for me after my losses. That powerful word of saying yes to support, and saying yes to engaging and taking action, it allowed me to find hope and possibilities in my own life. Now, I did a lot of things. I explored therapy, joined a support group, and engaged in many modalities. Each act of reaching out became a step toward processing pain, rediscovering the different phases of my life, the changes I was going through, the understandings I couldn't fully fathom or understand. Each act of reaching out became a step toward processing my pain and rediscovering this different phase of my life and this different version of myself that I was becoming after a loss. It gave me the capacity to live a life that was still worth living, all while still honoring my experience, my grief, my pain. But it also did something very special for me. It helped me nurture personal growth after loss. This powerful word of saying yes helped me rediscover joy in life again. And it helped me learn to honor my loved ones' memories in a way that didn't tie me solely to this debilitating, cyclical pain of grief. It also allowed me to learn and grow in a different way that I could have never thought or imagined. For me, in my own personal journey, my story of grief was a catalyst to turning something so incredibly horrific and painful into something good. My journey and my experience of grief led me to earning a PhD in psychology with an emphasis in my research on grief and personal growth after the loss of a loved one. Through this process, I have had the honor of conducting some incredible research and interviewed some amazing women who shared their own personal stories of how they describe their personal growth journey after their own losses. And let me tell you this, you are the expert of your own journey. And I'm only here to help and provide guidance and tools and information and education. But at the end of the day, you get to decide what you do with these tools because this is your journey. So you get to decide how you leverage them in your own life. My hope for you is that you can learn to say yes, saying yes to hope and possibilities in your own life after loss. Because again, my friend, you also matter greatly in this very unique experience. Your loss matters, your deceased loved one matters, your pain matters, but also you and your well being and your present and your future matters just as much. Now, saying yes to people and possibilities that can provide support in your life after loss doesn't mean that you are rushing the process of moving too quickly through your grief or that someone's trying to urge you to move on from it because we don't move on. We learn to grow through our grief and we learn to live a life in a world that makes no sense. So it is a process. Instead, embracing these supportive paths after loss can create the necessary space and time for you to give you an outlet to allow yourself to express your pain. It creates the necessary space and time and the grace to allow yourself to express your pain, that deep sorrow that is within you because you lost somebody you deeply love. This can help you learn to navigate in a world that may not feel familiar to you anymore. And I refer these positive changes that we create in our lives after a loss, as the concept of personal growth, which is very similar to post traumatic growth. However, it is approached with an intentionality. The concept of post traumatic growth following a loss is not new. In fact, Dr. Richard Tedeschi and Dr. Lawrence Calhoun coined the term post traumatic growth back in the 1990s. And post traumatic growth refers to the positive psychological changes that can occur after a life altering event, such as the death of a loved one. It is both a process and an outcome of changes. There are important differences between personal growth and post traumatic growth, which we will explore in our next episode. But for now, let me remind you that you have the power to say yes to support. You have the power to say yes to hope, yes to possibilities that can significantly impact the trajectory of your life after experiencing profound loss. I do want to share that the intensity and the frequency of grief can change over time. And I strongly believe in seeking out support to help create a safe space where there's no judgment and where you can express that pain and sorrow that you feel within you. As we come to the end of our discussion, I'd like to go over the important points we talked about today. So let's start with personal growth after loss. Personal growth after loss is possible, my friend, meaning you do not have to stay in this intense cycle of pain and sorrow that is debilitating and that we call grief. It is important to honor your process of processing your grief, of creating a space and time to express that pain. But I also want you to know that personal growth is also possible after deep and significant loss. The next point that I want you to remember is that you have the ability to say yes, to embrace new experiences, and be able to connect with others who can significantly impact in positive ways your path of navigating grief and helping to nurture your personal growth. Again, whether this is through talking to a licensed mental health professional, you can be joining a support group, or engaging in a creative outlet. You have the choice to take positive steps in your own life. You do have that autonomy. And the final thing I want you to remember is that I know that navigating grief can feel overwhelming. And I also want you to know that taking small, intentional steps that can support you in your life after loss can lead to personal growth and renewed hope. When this episode ends, I want you to commit to one thing or person that can help you create a positive change in your life after a loss. Now, this could be journaling your thoughts, reaching out to a friend, or to finally saying yes to therapy. Think about one thing you will say yes to and write it down, my friend. Write it down. It's so incredibly important. The final step is to take action. Make that phone call, enroll in that support group, or finally take out those paints and paintbrushes to express your creative outlet. Whatever it is, just start creating, engage, take action, because it's just a thought until you put it into action. So, as we draw this episode to a close, let's take a moment to pause and reflect on the journey we've shared together today. I know it's been a lot, but I'm so excited you are here and that I'm here with you, because life can be incredibly challenging. And sometimes I know it can feel so overwhelming, but it's also important to remember that you are not alone in this. Each of us carry our own struggles, and it's through these shared experiences that we can find connection and understanding that can help us in our own journeys of life after loss. So please go ahead and find your way of connecting with something or someone that's going to be supportive in your own journey. I want to go ahead and thank you again for being here, for listening to this episode, and for allowing me to accompany you on your very own personal journey of growth after loss. If today's episode resonated with you, please go ahead and share it with someone who might find comfort in these words. Remember, your loss matters, your grief matters, and you matter too, my friend. Until next time, take care of yourself. You are important and you deserve a life that is still worth living.